Welcome to a special edition of SpectrumCast. This edition is focused on technology partners that add capabilities to IBM's modern data protection portfolio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of SpectrumCast. In this edition, we're going to highlight an IBM business partner that adds value to IBM's modern data protection portfolio. On this week's episode, we're talking to Predatar with CEO and founder Al Mackenzie. Thanks for joining us this week, Alistair.
It's an absolute pleasure, Steve and Randy, and thank you for the introduction, and looking forward to getting into some of the meat of data protection, in particular backup and recovery today.
Great.
And props to your graphic designer for your logo, which I really dig. I'll put that out there.
And speaking of, always with me, my colleague, Randy Arsenault. Thanks for being with us today, Randy.
Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Thanks, Alistair, for coming on board. Appreciate it.
So, Alistair, why don't we get started with Predatar and who Predatar is, how that company came to be, and really, I got to know, tell me a little bit about the name. Sounds very ominous. I'd like to know what's behind that.
But in a good way.
Well, let's start with the name, shall we, guys? It's not that clever. Basically, it started off as predictive data, so pre-data. And then obviously we put an R on the end, and then it just a little bit of a word play. So, and then you get predator, and then obviously you end up with the alpha male, the wolf head, and it just rolled from there. So
awesome.
I guess it doesn't have a lot to do with backup and recovery per se, but I think once you've got a name for a company and you like it and people get used to it and it sort of sticks as a brand, it's you got to roll with it, right? So
absolutely.
It's really interesting to find out how those things come about. I recognize that accent a little bit. Why don't you tell us maybe where you're from and how you got interested in data protection and technology and that sort of thing?
So I'm from the UK. I'm a bit of a mongrel, a bit like the animal here maybe. So I was born in Wales, moved at an early age into England. My father was from the Highlands of Scotland. And my passion at school was mainly sport. I managed to scrape by, get enough qualifications to get to university, did an engineering degree. I was terrible at engineering, I've got to confess. Did mechanical engineering, enjoyed the university life, but really didn't come out with too high a score. And I did what most engineers do when they aren't very good at engineering. And I got into the sales business. So I started off selling advertising space, commission only advertising space. And then I moved actually down to the southern part of the United Kingdom and into what's called the sort of tech corridor of the M3, M4 corridor coming out of London. Mm-hmm. And I've never really come across it before. And everyone was getting into tech, and someone told me, you want to don't waste your time selling advertising space. It was print as well, so definitely on the way down.
Wise choice at the time.
Yeah. And they said you might want to try tech. It's a little bit easier. And I mean, at the time in the 90s, the fish were jumping into the boat, and I thought, wow, this is an easy way of making money. So, and then it just happened to be a storage company, and I don't know what it is about storage, but it just seems to suck you in, doesn't it? And grabs you, and nothing ever stays the same, and it's constantly been reinventing itself, the storage business. Yeah.
I think it's because we're an industry that is perpetually serving an infinite demand that's always increasing. Mm-hmm. So there's always room for more data, more storage, more technology. So
it's like death, taxes, and storage, right?
There you go.